All right, so we're going deep today. Deep into the world of Hollywood and how it shapes, really, I guess, human fantasy, our desires, our fears, how we see the world. And we're going to be looking at it through a really fascinating text called The Influence of Hollywood on Human Fantasy.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a really interesting deep dive because, we always talk about, like, the movies we love and the stories we love, but we don't often think about how those stories are actually shaping how we see the world.
Yeah, it's really impacting us on a subconscious level.
Totally. And the text starts with this really interesting point about how Hollywood, it doesn't just reflect our fantasies, it kind of manufactures them.
Right.
It gives us these compelling stories and characters that really tap into, like, some of our deepest desires and anxieties.
Yeah, totally.
So it's not just a mirror, it's like a factory, almost.
It is. And something the text goes into is this thing with, we're drawn to the bad guys, the anti-heroes, right? We've got Tony Soprano, we've got Walter White, we've got all these people who are doing these horrible things.
Right.
Yet we can't help but
root for them.
Kind of root for them.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah.
What is it about these characters that are operating outside the lines?
Well, I think it's partly because Hollywood knows how to tell a good story.
Okay.
Right? Like, if we look at a scene, say, from The Sopranos, where, Tony's committing some pretty brutal act, but the camera lingers on his face, not on the actual violence, right?
Yeah.
We see, like, a flicker of regret, a hint of humanity, and suddenly we're empathizing with a murderer.
Yeah, he's still a human being.
Yeah, and that's what Hollywood does so well, right? They blur the lines between good and evil and make us really question our own moral compass.
It's true. Like, you forget that he's a mob boss in those moments.
Totally.
Where you're like, oh, he's just a guy.
Yeah.
Having a hard time. And it's not just the characters, it's how it's shot, right?
Absolutely.
You look at a show like Breaking Bad.
Yes.
The violence is
stylized.
It's almost
beautiful,
like balletic in a way.
It's scary. The sound design, everything just amplifies the tension.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're really there in the action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, to go on that with the violence, because the text talks about how Hollywood, it depicts suffering a lot.
Yeah.
Both physical, emotional. It's a little bit morbid when you think about it. But
well, we can't look away.
We can't. So why is that?
Well, part of it, and the text talks about this too, is that it's evolutionary.
Oh, okay.
Right? Our brains are wired
to
pay attention to danger, and that includes the suffering of others.
Makes sense.
It's a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors avoid similar threats.
So even though it's fictional, it's happening to somebody else on the screen.
Right.
Our brain is still like, whoop, red alert, red alert.
Danger, danger, exactly. Yeah. And that's why we feel that, like...
that adrenaline.
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And beyond that, right, beyond just that sort of primal thing, there's also the idea that, witnessing suffering can be cathartic.
Yes.
Even if it's just in a movie.
Totally. It allows us to, process our own pain, our own anxieties, our own fears in a safe space.
Right. You're not really going through it.
Exactly. And it's almost like a form of emotional release,
Yeah, totally.
We can have a good cry.
Yeah, like watching a sad movie.
Exactly.
And you're like, I needed that.
Yeah.
I feel better now.
Exactly.
So Hollywood can take us down some dark paths sometimes, but it can also, really uplift us.
Yeah.
Inspire us.
For sure.
And the text goes on to talk about the more positive influences, right? The impact on, say, how we view love and relationships, even technology in the future.
Absolutely. So if you think about, like, classic romantic comedies,
they
often present, like, these really idealized versions of love, full of, like, grand gestures and happy endings.
Yeah.
And, they might not be totally realistic.
Right.
But they give us this sense of hope.
Yeah. And
possibility, right?
Yeah, we want that. We want that fairy tale ending.
Yeah, exactly.
It gives us a blueprint, I guess you could say, for what we think our relationships should be like.
What we should aspire to.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. What about technology, though? Because we have a lot of, science fiction movies out there.
Yeah.
And they're portraying these amazing, like, futuristic societies.
Right.
Do you think that actually has any impact?
I think, absolutely.
Real-world innovation.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at something like Star Trek, the communicators they were using back then, way predate flip phones and touch screens and stuff. Like that was like the seed that was planted.
Right, it's like,
and it kind of pushed scientists and engineers to be like, how can we make this a reality? World.
What if?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
yeah, it's power.
And it's not always, just about gadgets and stuff, right?
It's about,
because a lot of science fiction deals with some pretty complex
social and ethical
issues.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of Blade Runner. Right. It really makes you think about artificial intelligence and what does it mean to be human.
Totally. And those kinds of films can really spark important conversations that lead to real world change.
Right. Totally.
We have to grapple with these issues as technology advances.
Yeah. But also, let's not forget just the simple power of escapism.
Sometimes we just need to dive into a different world.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
lose ourselves in a story.
Yeah.
Experience something extraordinary.
Yeah, I think of Avatar. The visuals, it was like, I'm transported to this other world.
Yeah.
And it's just so...
It's pure escapism.
Yeah.
From the mundane.
Yeah.
And the everyday.
From reality.
Yeah. And it gives you this sense of wonder. Right? And expands your imagination.
Yeah. And that's what fantasy does.
That's what fantasy's all about.
It's about, like...
It is.
Pushing the boundaries.
So we've really looked at the positives and the negatives of Hollywood's influence.
Yeah.
But, like, taking a step back from all of that, why are humans so...
Why are we so obsessed with fantasy?
Well, I think it's our desire. It's innate in us, right? To explore, to understand, to find meaning in a world that can often feel very confusing and overwhelming.
Yeah.
Fantasy gives us this opportunity to, like, step outside the boundaries of reality and explore all these different possibilities.
Like a mental playground.
It is. It's a mental playground.
Yeah. We can try things out.
Yes.
We can face our fears.
Exactly. And just imagine a world beyond our own, which is, I think, fundamentally human,
It is.
We're curious creatures.
It's so fascinating to think about how all of this impacts us.
Yeah.
How these movies, these stories, these fantasies, how they shape how we see ourselves and the world around us.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
Think about it. Which fictional worlds or characters have had the most profound impact on your own personal fantasies, and why?
Yeah, what speaks to you?
Yeah, what is it about those stories that you connect with on a deeper level?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and let your imagination...
Run wild.
Run wild.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
This is DigitView.